Hi there, and thank you for trusting me to help you along on your IELTS journey. We're now going to get into our analysis of the listening exam on the IELTS. This is the listening section of our course, so let's go ahead and get started. So, in regards to the basics of the listening test, as we've told you before, and we're going to repeat that information right now, there are 40 questions on the exam. There are 40 questions on the exam. You have a total of 40 minutes on the IELTS listening test. 30 of those minutes are for the actual exam, and then after the exam is finished, you're given 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the test sections to the answer sheet. Now, it's perfectly fine if you want to write your answers directly on the answer sheet right away. But some students like to put their answers on the actual test itself, and then they give you 10 minutes afterwards to transfer your answers. So the total amount of time is 40 minutes. Now, there are 4 sections, 10 questions per section. 4 sections. And those 4 sections are going to alternate between conversations and solo presentations or lectures. In section number 1, is a conversation between 2 people. Section number 2 is going to be a general solo presentation by one person on a general life topic. Then section number 3 is going to be a conversation, but most of the time it's going to be between 2 to 3 people. And then finally in section number 4, they're going to give you really more of an academic kind of lecture. Now, throughout the entire listening test, you really are going to encounter only 2 main question types. Every question is some variation on multiple choice or fill the blank questions. So let's look at section number 1. First of all, please note that there's been a recent change in the exam where they have eliminated the example at the start of section number 1. I really think that they started doing this because students used to use the time for the example to read through section 2, section 3 of the exam. And so they kind of wanted to eliminate that. That's my belief. Now, section number 1 will be a conversation between 2 people, and it will be on some everyday life topic: booking, working, eventing, event plans. Typically, it will be a fill-the-blank question. However, it is possible for you to receive some simple multiple choice type of questions also. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move forward with section number 2 of the listening. Now, this is going to be normally a non-academic short presentation on some type of general life topic. They're going to be talking about some new center that opened, some new community project that's going on. That's what they're going to talk about, something they're developing new in the community, but it's going to be one person speaking. Now, you have like a 50-50 shot of having multiple choice or fill-the-blank questions. Section number 2 is a little bit harder than section number 1. Not a lot, not much more difficult than section number 1, just a little bit more difficult. Now, in section number 2, this is where you will most likely encounter a map question. The map question does not happen every single test, but normally when they do have a map question, it's going to be in section number 2. All right, section number 3. Now, you notice that first we had a conversation, then a solo presentation. Now we're back to a conversation. The only difference is this time, most likely, the conversation is going to be between 2 to 3 people. More and more on the exam, this conversation has been between 3 people. Normally a student, 2 students, and a professor talking about some type of academic project that they're working on. Again, you're going to have multiple choice and fill the blank questions. Section 3, more difficult than section 2. How do they make it more difficult? Well, they're going to have longer answer choices. So in section 2, the answer choices might be 4 words, 5 words maximum, 3 or 4 words. In section number 3, answer choices can be much longer, 5 words, 6 words, 7 words long. In addition to that, they make it more difficult by raising the level of vocabulary. In section number 1, they're using a lot of basic level vocabulary. Section number 2, I would say, is probably more lower intermediate. When we get to section number 3, now we're talking about intermediate to upper intermediate type of vocabulary. So that's how they make it more difficult. Question types are the same. Question types are the same. Question possibilities are the same, except for you're not going to really see a map question. All right, now with question number 4, these are the basics of question number 4. This is where you get into much more of an academic lecture. This is the most difficult section of the exam in terms of listening. There's no break in between. You know, in some of the other sections, you'll hear a break between the first 5 questions and the next 5 questions. Here, they're going to go all the way from question 31 to 40. Again, more difficult because the nature, the topics are much more academic, and also the vocabulary level is definitely upper intermediate to advanced. The answer choices that you have to listen for are going to be more difficult to spell because they're going to be words that are upper intermediate to advanced. So that's how they're playing around here. That's what they're doing to make it more difficult for you. But you can do it, you can handle it. It's just a matter of you being able to watch out for the tricks and the traps that they're using and practicing the right kind of way. And we're going to teach you how to do that. Here is some helpful information when it comes to the IELTS exam. As you've heard me say a few times already, it gets progressively more difficult. So that means that in sections 1 and 2, you have to do a very, very good job in sections 1 and 2. Because section 3 is more difficult, section 4 is very difficult. The test gets progressively more difficult. Next, the listening for the IELTS is listening comprehension. It's not a listening test. And that distinction is very, very important for you to understand. A listening test might be, listen for this word that I said and then write down that word. Right? Listening comprehension is where they are trying to test your ability to comprehend what you heard. And they do that by playing around with synonym language and paraphrasing a lot. You have to be able to comprehend what you heard. Now, the questioning format is important for you to understand because in every section, or now they're calling it parts. Before they used to call it section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. Now they're calling it part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. But the questioning format, the questions come one after the other. Question 1, as soon as they finish giving the information to answer question number 1, they're going into question number 2. They're not giving you any time. There's only a short break between each section. But during the, and also there's a short break, like in section 1, they'll do questions 1 to 5, and then they'll give you some time to look at questions 6 through 10. All right? But the questions are going to come one after the other. There's no time for note-taking. You have to be able to listen and write simultaneously. That's the answering process. Your spelling must be perfect. Okay? Your spelling must be perfect. That's really, really important. And you cannot, please, please, please read the instructions because you cannot go over the word limit. All right, coming up next, we're going to go over the listening question types, and we're going to introduce you to some of the basic strategies surrounding the listening question types. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me.